So, as time continues to pass us by and we get closer to the NBA draft as well as next season, if you're a Jazz fan, you come to terms with the fact that the tank, while it didn't go as perfect as it could have gone, it didn't go as terrible as it could have because obviously we secured the worst record in the league, which meant we were locked in at a top five pick. And us being at five is obviously the least preferable out of them, but it's not the worst thing in the world considering the type of players that are in this year's draft. There's a lot more interesting question marks than there were in the previous year's draft. And there's a lot more guys where you feel comfortable to take a risk on. And I've been a big guy for, your Trey Johnsons and whatnot. And even though Ace Bailey isn't as tall as everybody thought he was gonna be, there's been a lot of other guys that have impressed at the combine, and we went over them in previous videos. But I feel like being a Utah Jazz fan isn't the worst thing in the world right now. Next year, I hesitate to say how we're going to cope with probably, and the most likely thing is we're going to tank again this next year, specifically at the very least. I don't know about the year after just yet. I think it's highly dependent on number one, who we end up taking with the 5th and 21st picks in this draft. And if we do something to package the 2 second rounders to maybe get somebody's late first round next year or do something to just make it interesting because we don't want to have our roster loaded with young guys for no reason. Because then you have a bunch of guys on the team that aren't going to have a realistic chance of even making the roster because there's just no minutes to give them. You already have a large multitude of guys that are going to be vying for showing that they've improved, showing that they've taken that next step, or they might be on the chopping block. If you're a Keontae George lover coming into this year, he needs to make something happen. The efficiency can't stay the way that it is. Yes, we're tanking, and it was kind of acceptable the first year, and it was, I guess, more acceptable this year, but you were hoping to see more flashes, and there weren't enough of them, and there's not enough defensive upside to justify what's been going on with him. Where meanwhile, you have guys like Bryce Sensabaugh, who, despite not being in the greatest physical shape, they come out there, he's improved defensively, he's relatively competent on that side of the ball, but his efficiency has jumped off the charts. If you had Keontae George's aggression and shot selection, but with Bryce Sensabaugh's, efficiency, then you would love that version of Keontae George. But it doesn't exist yet. So you have to wait. Now, I would say that depending on how well the pieces that we end up getting in this year's draft look coming into the preseason, and obviously Summer League is going to be a big, a little bit of a step up. That's going to give us a little bit of a gauge of where they are in comparison to the more elite players and the guys that are vying and just clawing to get a roster spot, whether it be on an NBA team, on a G League team. They just want to be somewhere in the league and related to basketball. That's going to tell us more so where they're probably going to fit into our rotations. And then coming in the season, I'd say probably the first 10 to 15 games will end up telling us exactly where we should put our faith. Now, are we going to tank again? Yes. Do I think it's going to be as egregious as this year? Probably not. I don't think there's going to be a great way of doing it. There's going to be questions swirling around Larry Markkinen potentially getting traded. And before I was like, why would we trade Larry Markkinen? He wants to be here, all this other stuff. I was thinking about it from a purely basketball standpoint and the fact that also he loves being here, his family's here, he's got kids, that sort of thing. So it made sense to keep him even into the twilight years of his career when he's literally dust and bones and it's time to just let him go and retire his jersey. That was my mantra. But I still want to see him play meaningful basketball. So at the same time, yes, he's still in his 20s, but if we tank this upcoming year, right? That means he's going to be 28 going into 29. Usually guys primes last until maybe 33, 34 if they're really good with their health because everybody's not LeBron James, obviously. Everybody's not Stephen Curry. Everybody's not Kevin Durant. Everybody doesn't have that special healing factor. So it's one of those things where him also being as tall and having the issues with back and lower back and leg extremity issues, it's not the most ideal circumstance for a player of his caliber, especially considering he's a 7-footer. Now, he doesn't have the most physical play style, which does bode well for the longevity of his career. But because we didn't end up being able to get Cooper Flag this year, it begs the question, if we get a guy and we like the guy, but he's just not as pivotal to a championship run potentially 5-10 years down the road, even when he's like well into his prime, do you contemplate saying this is going to take longer than we thought? We're just gonna blow it up. We're gonna give up guys like your John Collins. We're gonna make sure we give it to John Collins this time. Jordan Clarkson gotta go. Colin Sexton, we love you, but you gotta go. Larry Markkinen, we love you, but you gotta go. Is that what's gonna happen? Because as we get closer to that, and the less according to plans things go, I think it's more valuable to view it through that lens. Granted, I think that the more interesting thing is that this upcoming season, and I did it a little bit this year when I was watching the games. Obviously, we want to win, but we know we're not going to win. We know we're tanking. So, with that being the guaranteed expectation of the roster, I want us to look at the young guys and how they play. Obviously, like this season, we saw a lot of times where Cody Williams would be on the floor closing a game out when the game's tight. Had no business being on the floor then, could not keep up, wasn't physical enough, would be easily bodied. Did he move his feet? Well, obviously, but he has such a wiry frame. It's like he can't really affect much of anything. He's not very much of a lockdown defender as he could be once he puts on, 15, 20 pounds, maybe even 30 pounds, because I think his official draft measurement had him weighing at like 178. And at his height, that's not going to work. If he was like, Colin Sexton's height, then you might be able to get away with it. But even Colin Sexton's like 197. So those sort of things we're going to see a lot of. We're going to see a lot of guys that probably shouldn't be on the court closing a game, trying to close a game the best way they know how. And it's going to be hard for Will Hardy because obviously we want to make sure he stays on. And I think he is a very good coach. The way he schematically plays the game and wants guys to be motivated to do certain things on the floor, despite probably understanding that management wants him to lose the game regardless, I appreciate. And I'm not the greatest lover of Danny Ainge. I'm not the greatest lover of Justin Zanuck. I'm not the greatest lover of, the owner of the team. But I am a lover of Will Hardy because the way his basketball brain works is really nice to me. Defensively, I like to see certain stretches of the game where it's like, we're not playing to lose right now. We're just playing ball. And he's letting the guys go out there and hoop. And he's setting in things and trying different actions to see who can get comfortable, to see who can adapt on the fly, to see who can take control of the offense, to say who can communicate on defense and make sure they switch properly, who has quick feet, who has slow feet, who can communicate when they need help before it actually happens and becomes a detriment to the team. All those little things and being able to work around them so that once those guys become mature, not only did you watch them all grow, you've been able to control their progression to the point where they all peak at the same time. For those that are if anybody's a trackhead, then you would liken it kind of to the fact that a lot of times for like sprinting events, when you have a sprinter at the very beginning of the season, the way you taper the schedule of their workout plan isn't so that they peak at the beginning of the season. You want them to gradually get better, and then right there around the conference championships, the state championships, whatever type of championships you have, you want that to be that peak mark where everything just culminates into this wonderful blend and all the progress just melds all together. You want their times to go ahead and taper down because you want to reach a point where when you need them to be their best and when you expect them to be their best, they will be their best and they will perform like the person that you imagine them to be. Similarly, in a basketball context, all these guys aren't going to be ready for the next 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 to 7 years for the guys that are about to get brought into the league. But I think that being able to enjoy and watch these guys individually, usually you watch a game, you're like, oh, someone so shot the ball. Oh, someone so swung that pass. Oh, that was a great pass. I'm going to be looking more so at the individual pieces on the floor. What combinations of players do we put out there? And how can they cohesively play together? Who seems to always be on the same page and who's always off? All those little things. I think this is going to be a year where the analyst and the basketball fans is going to be challenged a bit and is going to give everybody the opportunity to grow and understand the game a little bit better. It's not just going to be about wins and losses. The plan is to lose. We're beyond that now. But you want to reach a point where you understand, number one, why we lost. Number two, what improvements can be made for each individual piece. And number three, where the blame lies between everybody and is everybody being accountable for their actions. And if you can break it down and look at it in small parts, then you don't really care about the loss unless it's like we lose by 30, because then it's like, what the hell happened, you know? But other than that, it's one of those things where if we lose by anywhere inside of 10 points, even anywhere inside of 15 points, if we play a lot of the rookies and second year players, then you're going to feel comfortable being able to break things down and look at things from the standpoint of everybody individually and grading people based on how they did in the game. Walker Kessler had a great game. Keontae George didn't have a great game. Bryce Sensabaugh had a great game. Taylor Hendricks had a really, really good game, but it didn't really look really, really good in the way that a lot of people would expect for it to look good. Just putting pins in little things and making mental notes of things. So once we become a competent team and the goal is to win basketball games and we start rolling out lineups, we can look back at seasons before and in our heads be like, it makes sense that so-and-so is not on the floor right now. It makes sense that we don't run Kyle Filipowski and Taylor Hendricks on the floor at the same time because Taylor Hendricks in his rookie year wasn't a great rim protector. And Kyle Filipowski is not a rim protector at all. He moved his feet a little bit better than we thought he would his rookie year, but he's always going to be a slight defensive liability to a certain extent. And pick and rolls, he's been able to navigate them a little better and he can get better. But it would be foolish of us to expect to hold things down defensively when Walker's not on the floor if the next man up is going to be sliding Kyle Filipowski up to the 4 and putting Taylor Hendricks at the 5 to kind of mitigate the issues there. But you could say, okay, they'll go on a run because there's more shooting on the floor in that case, in which case, makes sense. It's feasible. And being able to grow as a fan with a team in that way, I think will be fun to do. But that's really the only positive that really comes to mind when you really get down to the bare bones of everything. There's quite a few guys so far in this draft that look really good to me, and I've covered them in each of the videos thus far. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Trey Johnson, but there's been a lot of guys at the combine who tested out in their measurements, whether it be height, weight. The vert test was kind of interesting. It shed a little bit of light on some guys. And then on top of that, just the sheer length of some of these guys, very tantalizing. We need wings. We, at the 21st pick overall, if we don't get a big, I would be kind of surprised. But at the same time, if not, then I think that we're going to go for a wing that has a lot of length and a lot of potential upside. Maybe they're not the greatest wing on the board at the time, but I need somebody that's going to be a project player where defensively there's going to be a lot of confidence. That's what we thought Cody Williams was going to be able to be. But when he went to the combine and we found out, he's in the 170s, he's not 190, kind of had us scratching our heads a little bit. And it showed during the duration of the season. And that's why he spent a lot of time in the G League, whereas you saw guys like Bryce Sensabaugh, his first year, and Taylor Hendricks, their first year, where the majority of the first half of the season, almost like 2/3 of the year, they were in the G League. And then that last part of the year, we brought them up, and obviously we were going to go ahead and bottom out anyways, but we brought them up, and they actually played some quality basketball. It wasn't great, but it was quality basketball, and we learned a lot about them as players. And that leads me to the more interesting part of the video for myself personally, the thing that I've been wanting to talk about, and that's the NBA playoffs and what we've seen so far. Because yes, the Jazz and a bunch of other teams aren't in it, but I kind of like where this is going. Obviously, you're going to have a leader that gets a ring that has never had a ring before between the 4 teams. Obviously, you got the Pacers and the Knicks in the East, and then you got Ant and SGA in the West. And Ant, as of me making this video, is the day after they won their first game. They blew the Thunder out. Oh my goodness, it looks so good. That was the Anthony Edwards that I was hoping I would see in game 2. That was the team that I was hoping I would see in game 2. But it was okay because they came out on their home floor and did damage. And it wasn't even close. I think third quarter they were up like 36 at one point, and then it got worse. It did not get better. It got worse. We even got to see some of those young guys get in on the court super early, get some serious burn in the fourth quarter especially. But the reason why I bring the playoffs up is because if you're a Utah Jazz fan, there's some interesting implications depending on who wins these 2 series here. And the team that I think we should pay the most attention to right now is the Pacers. You have a team like the Knicks where they have big 3, big 4, if you will. They have a really strong roster of guys that can play the length of an entire game through injuries, whatever happens. They don't care. They're going to be out there every single game, every single night, hooping. You have Jalen Brunson, who's going to sit there and give you everything he has. You have Josh Hart, who's going to sit there every board. Don't let him be within 15 feet of the ball bouncing off the rim. He going to get up in it. You know what I'm saying? Defensively, he's going to be there. And you have Mikal Bridges, who is literally the Iron Man, who's played every game for God knows how long, always out there defensively. Offensively, his jumper isn't always falling, especially this year. But despite that, he's still a plus when he's on the floor. Karl-Anthony Towns has been getting exposed terribly in pick and rolls. Jalen Brunson, obviously, we know he's short. We know there's only but so much he can do defensively. But it's been a very lucrative for the Pacers to pull Karl-Anthony Towns into some serious actions and just dismantle him. And the reason why I want to focus on the Pacers is because I was watching one of my boys on TikTok, Heem. I want to link I'll link his thing in the description. He made a video a couple weeks ago, before, or like a week and a half ago, before this championship round of each conference went off, and he was talking about how he thinks OKC is going to win the West, and then he said the Pacers are going to win the East. And I was thinking about it. I was like, I don't want the Pacers to win the East, but it is possible. And the logic that he used behind it was essentially the fact that the Pacers are one team that nobody wants to deal with. Nobody talks about it, right? They were the 4th seed. They won 50 games. They were 50-32. They were solid. But nobody wants to play the Pacers when you need to win games, because they have they're 1 through 8, 1 through 9. There's not much of a drop off. Everybody's like, oh, lock down Tyrese Halliburton, then you win the game. No, Tyrese Halliburton, they're winning games where Tyrese is putting together 14, 3, and 7. Like, if you can do that, that means everybody else is really, really good. Like the way people talk about Jason Tatum, for example, with the Celtics, they're like, oh man, the Celtics win any game without Jason Tatum. Granted, their team is really good. But Jaylen Brown, you can never convince me. Well, granted, in the playoffs in the previous year when, they got their championship ring, he did step up in the finals. I'll give him that. But did you pay $300 million for one ring? I guarantee you they don't get another one. Just a thought. I'm not a Jaylen Brown hater, but I'm a Jaylen Brown hater. I'm also a little bit of a Jason Tatum hater. But the thing is, when you take Jason Tatum off that team, you watch them fall apart. You watch them crumble. You watch them be ineffective. Even in games where Jason Tatum just doesn't play well, and let's say he doesn't do all the extra stuff, he doesn't rebound, he doesn't pass the ball well, they lose those games. If Tyrese Halliburton has a bad shooting night, it doesn't matter. It doesn't. Obi Toppin out here giving you double figures, backdoor cuts galore. You have Neesmith, you have Nembhard, you have all these guys going berserko. And it's one of those things where Siakam had 39 in game 2. Why did... I'm getting a little bit off topic. I feel strongly about this because I don't want to love the Pacers, but the Pacers are making it difficult for me not to appreciate their style of basketball. It's one of those things where, like, how do I put it? Like, guys like D-Wade, like, you can hate D-Wade, but you can't discredit how he was as a player. There's players where you can hate, there's coaches you can hate, but you can't discredit how good they were. They were just like that. You know what I'm saying? And looking at this box score right here, they won both their games close by the Knicks, obviously. That first game was a heartbreaker because the Knicks were down. The Knicks were up 17 at one point, I believe. It was borderline 20 points. And one thing from one of Hakeem's videos that he really highlighted was the reason why Indiana is so dangerous is they can shoot so well and they're so deep. They can run you off the floor in a span of 4 minutes. They can go from down 20 to up 20 in half a quarter. It takes very little. You blink and they're blowing you out. And for the fact that they were down in that game, struggling so much, and then in a span of, I believe it was 2.5 minutes, I want to say, they ended up going on a 23-point run. And it's like, how does that happen? Like, yes, we get it. You're a good basketball team, but still how? But then when you watch it and you watch how fast the Knicks were playing, the fact that they're exposing what's on the floor given to them, the Pacers, they're just taking their time. And then you have Neesmith going off and just going berserko. He's shooting threes like he thinks he's Klay Thompson with the most awkward footwork of all time. I swear, watching those threes leave his hand, I knew they were cash, and it pissed me off because I want the Knicks to win because I want to see. I don't want to see New York get destroyed, but like I want to see how crazy the New York fans can get in the finals when things are at their peak, because they were going crazy in the second round. So them being able to win in New York, I thought it was going to go crazy. Then you're talking about, what do you mean Neesmith hit like 8 threes? What do you mean he went crazy? What do you mean he had almost 20 points in the fourth quarter? How? He's not like that. He's not supposed, let me rephrase that. He's not supposed to be like that. They're supposed to be a really solid defensive team that swings the ball really well, and they take the shot that is available to them. No, they're going crazy. They're going crazy. And in game 2, it was calmer, but you still had a game where Tyrese Halliburton could give you less than 15 points, and they still win. They won by 5, 114-109. You had Aaron Neesmith, 12 points. You had Siakam with 39. You had Miles Turner with 16. You had Nembhard with 12. You had Halliburton with 14. You had Obi Toppin. He only had 4 points. He played 19 minutes. Still impactful. You had TJ McConnell with 10 points. You had Ben Shepherd with 6 points. You had all these guys running on the court, and they were able to close the game without issue. You had Pascal Siakam shoot 15 for 23. He was 3 of 5 from 3. Neesmith was 2 of 3 from 3. Miles Turner was 1 of 4 from 3. Nembhard was 2 of 2 from 3. You had a game where you locked down Tyrese Halliburton, and he shot 5 of 16 from the field, 3 of 10 from 3. He only got 2 free throws. He went 1 of 2 from the line as well. He did have 11 assists, right? He did have 8 rebounds. He led his team with rebounds. Next closest was Aaron Neesmith with 7. Then you had Siakam with 5, Turner with 3, and Nembhard with 3. So it's one of those things where if the Pacers win this championship, it's going to change how teams view players as individuals how much they're willing to pay players, and then how they construct their teams going forward. Because the Pacers are showing you, you don't have to have. Tyrese Halliburton is not a top 10 player in this league. I would argue he's probably not even top 15. But at the same time, you can win. You can make the conference finals and get up 2 games. They're up 2-0 right now as I'm recording this video. And it looks, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on what side of the aisle you're on, like they're going to win this. If you can get that far and you don't have a consensus top 15 player on your team, brother, how did you do it? And then you look at the games. You have to watch these games. Watch them play the Knicks. The Knicks have they have a Brunson-centric system. They have a star player who's phenomenal. Is he a short guard? Yes. Is he a defensive liability? Yes. Think about the Hornets when they had Kemba Walker, right? Did they have decent guys? Did they have Al Jefferson before he fell off a cliff? Yes. They had somewhat of a system. They were a relatively competent team. They were vying for the playoffs. But at the same time, Kemba was the heart of that team. Everything ran through Kemba. And Kemba wasn't necessarily as much of a playmaker as Kemba may have been a little bit similar. He was a similar player, basically, to Brunson. That's the most important thing. Defensively, he's going to get exposed, but offensively, he's going to give you everything and a half. But you have better players around the Kemba Walker in a situation. Jalen Brunson has all these guys, all these gadget players, all these guys that can give you high minutes, all these guys that can shoot the ball, all these guys that can defend, despite the fact that Karl-Anthony Towns isn't a great defender, right? But still, they struggle to close games against a team that doesn't have a top 15 player. If you look at Tyrese Halliburton and you say, Tyrese Halliburton is borderline a fringe top 15 player, where do you put Siakam? I'd say Siakam's definitely top 50, but do we go top 20? I don't think he's top 20. I would say he's probably around 27-ish. And that's just me not thinking about players in general. Just thinking about the way he plays the game. He's probably around 27. Then you have Nesmith, Miles Turner, Nembhard. Now, Miles Turner has a game every now and then, but he's always in everybody's trade talks because sometimes it's like, man, we really like him. Other times it's like, yo, I'm not going to lie. Get him up out of here. It's one of those things. Obi Toppin, he's not a game changer. He's a cool player. He's going to have a couple of games where he does some really important things for you. He's going to play hard-nosed defense. He's going to beat you on the backdoor cut. He's going to have some athletic finishes. That's his game. That's what he does. But that's it, right? He's not going to do something miraculous and be the reason you win a game. I mean, he could have a couple plays down the stretch, but he's not a game changer, so to speak. TJ McConnell, not a game changer. Reliable three-point shooter, not a game changer. Ben Shepherd, not a game changer. Mathurin, not a game changer. Bradley Bryant, none of those guys. None of them are game changers. You have Tyrese Halliburton, who at peak of his game, at primary efficiency, is going to dismantle your team with his ability to pass and put these guys into position to make the right plays. But the thing is, all the role players play their role and make the play. So if you're a team like the Utah Jazz or a team like even the Washington Wizards, because they have a couple pieces interested down there, or if you're the Bulls, they have some interesting pieces. Maybe you reevaluate the way you play the game of basketball. Maybe you reevaluate who you're willing to go after in free agency, who you're willing to draft, because you say, I don't have to have the greatest guy on the floor. I just have to be able to say 1 through 7, 1 through 8, I trust all of them to do their job more often than I believe they're not going to be able to correctly execute. And if we reach a point where the league looks like that, there's going to be some interesting conversations. And if you look at the Pacers and you're a Jazz fan, right? I feel as if you may believe that you're closer to being out of the rebuild than you ever thought you were. Because you don't need a world where, Lauri Markkanen is a top 5 player in the league. You don't have a world, and this is if all these guys stay on the team, obviously nobody gets traded. You don't need Colin Sexton to be a top 2 guard in the league. You don't need whoever you draft at 5 right here to develop into the top 5 at their respective position. You don't need a top 15 player. Would it be nice to have one? Absolutely. Not saying don't have one. But you don't have to sell everything and then some just to get one. If you draft and you could say 1 through 7, 1 through 8, maybe even 1 through 9, I like all these guys. They all bring something specific. And depending on what team we face in the playoffs, if I need somebody that can shoot really well, guy number 8 now becomes guy number 7. Guy number 6 now becomes guy number 8. And we could flip flop these things, and everybody understands and will play their role and will not be mad that, hey, this series right here, man, you're not going to be able to play a great deal of minutes. For example, with the Warriors, everybody's getting on Steve Kerr because he doesn't know how to use Jonathan Kuminga. Whether you buy into that or not, Kuminga just isn't necessarily the same type of piece, and he doesn't work as seamlessly as guys like your Draymonds, your Jimmy Butlers, even Pods, even though he's questionable sometimes, and obviously Stephen Curry. But there's some guys where it's like, I can't play you in certain situations. Are you going to be okay with that? When the time comes and we're in a position where I told you, hey, this series, you're not going to play very many minutes, but in this particular scenario, you would be very good. Can you come on the floor, be yourself, be honest with yourself, and show us that lightning in a bottle that we know you are? If you could do that, fantastic. The Pacers are really good because they have a bunch of those guys. There's going to be a different guy that steps up every single game to do what needs to be done. Like I said, why would some random role player be able to give you 8 threes in a game? And most of them came in the fourth quarter when you were getting cooked. I cannot stress enough how they were getting fried. And then 2.5 minutes, now we're going to overtime. Now we have a game where both teams scored 130. I looked at the box score, I said, that can't be right. I said, overtime. I said, that can't be right. I had to watch the game back. I had to watch the raw highlights because I couldn't believe it. You speed up the team that obviously, granted, the Knicks being in transition, they love to hit you before you're set. Once the Pacers get set and they're not tired, if they get tired, they have somebody that comes off the bench that will play just as hard on defense as the last guy. If Tyrese Halliburton is the only realistic defensive liability you have, he's not that bad defensively. And what he doesn't do defensively, he more than makes up for with his offensive competency. Again, I'm gonna read this again because I need everybody to really, I'm harping on this really bad, and I need everybody to understand. He had a double-double, right? 14 and 11. This is your star player. Box score plus minus of a -2, right? 5 of 16. He shot underneath 33% from the field. He shot 3 of 10 from three-point range. That's 30% from three-point range. He took double as many threes as the next guy, Pascal Siakam, who was 3 of 5. Siakam was a box score plus minus of a +16. Miles Turner, +17. Nesmith, +12. Nembhard had his flat 0. Then off the bench, you had Obi Toppin, -11. TJ McConnell, +5. Ben Shepherd, +8. Benedict Mathurin, -12. And Bradley, +1. Then you had Bryant with -9. You can have so many things go wrong and so many things go right because the right role players step up and get the job done. And maybe you say, after this series, we're going to have an uncomfortable conversation about, Pascal Siakam. But Siakam, despite, that one time when he had Kawhi and the Raptors went in and won the finals, Siakam to me has always been a 2B caliber player. Maybe even like a 3A. Fantastic. Would love to have him as a 3A. But when we're talking about, hey, in games where your number one guy is struggling, Siakam's going to be your savior. Do you trust that? He's making us think we have to. And he wasn't the guy that stepped up in game 1. It's a different guy each game. Next game, Nembhard might give us 25. I don't know. Miles Turner might give you 30. I don't know. It's one of those things where they're objective, like on paper, and what their resume says. They're not nearly as great as everybody would anticipate them to be. But they come out and they put belt to ass every night because of sheer willpower, the power of friendship, the power of energy, properly game planning, being on the floor and understanding and properly communicating when they're on the floor, and everybody doing their job to the best of their ability and not handicapping their other players. And when you have guys that buy into the scheme, this is like watching one of those teams, anybody that played AAU, you wake up 8 a.m. on a Saturday, you got to be at the sports complex. You show up and you're playing a team that has either no subs or they have like 6 guys. They have 6 or 7 guys. And right out the gate, they give you a triangle full court press. You're in hell. You're going to struggle tonight because they're not going to get tired because they can't afford to get tired. And they know it. And if they do get tired, they're going to find a way to power through it. That's who the Pacers are as a roster. If somebody gets tired, best believe Subs coming in, subs about to be on you. Subs about to be frying you. And if you have something that you struggle at, they will find it and they will put the right personnel on the floor to exploit it. So coaching is also going to be at a premium coming forward. Being able to have a coach that can do away with old schemes and put whatever works, no matter how simplistic or how complicated it is, put the right guys on the floor and let everybody know, hey, if we lose, that's on me. All you need to do is do exactly what we said in walkthroughs, exactly what we said in the film room, exactly what I say when we're in the game. If you follow what I say, we will win. Because you have coaches like Doc Rivers where he will do the same thing. Even if it's losing him the game, he doesn't adapt very well. He doesn't change the way his thought process works. There's some older coaches that are like that. The best coaches are the ones that can adapt on the fly. That's why player coaches have become a hot commodity as of late, more so, especially the younger ones. You're willing to gamble with guys like JJ Redick because they understand what it's like to be a player, but they also understand that sometimes you have to be willing to gamble. You have to be willing to take a risk. You have to try something you've never tried before. And sometimes it's going to pay off. Other times it's not going to pay off. But you have to be accountable and accept both sides of that bargain. And if you're a team, if you're watching and you're a front office member, you're a coach, you're on the coaching staff of any team, and you're watching the Pacers play, it's going to be interesting. If they make it out of this round and they go on to the next round, Lord forbid they win the ring. If they win the ring, all hell's going to break loose. Because again, either one or two things has to happen. Either you say Pascal Siakam and Tyrese Halliburton are borderline, or they're guaranteed, one of them at the very least, if not both of them, is guaranteed to be a top 15 player in the league. Or you say, we might have to review how we evaluate players and how we build our organizations. There's not a one-size-fits-all. The Big Three era is gone. It came and went. The super team era is gone. It came and went. We saw Kevin Durant fail. We've seen the Suns flounder. I called the Suns floundering, and everybody said I was crazy. Everybody said it was baloney. I sat there and threw a chart in a video about injuries and how availability was going to be one of the biggest things, and one of the biggest reasons they failed. The fact that they have 3 iterations of the same person. Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Bradley Beal are the same person. They don't have a pure point guard. They got a Jones brother. Okay, cool. It wasn't enough. The injuries piled up when everybody was healthy, weren't successful. They sacrificed their depth. The Pacers are the antithesis of what the Suns are. They're not extremely top heavy. There is no top. Tyrese Halliburton is your top. Oh, I just said he shot almost 20 shots and shot under 33%. And they won by 5 convincingly. So I know I went on a little bit of a rant there, and by a little bit, I'm probably about half this video by this point. But I say all that to say this. If you're a team that is tanking, or, if you're a fan of a team that's kind of been middling in nowheresville, looking at the Pacers and how the Pacers do this year may end up influencing what your coaching staff, what your ownership mantle decides to do, what your general manager decides to do, and the type of players that we end up getting going forward, as well as what type of contracts end up getting given out. Because you may see a world where, unless you are literally him, if you are not one of one in this league, why would we give you a supermax? We may take a little bit of a step back, but we can still go to the same round with or without you, brother. We would love to have you, but I'm not about to sit here and pay you out the ass and sacrifice depth. It won't happen anymore. It can't happen anymore. People will look at those deals and say that was a terrible move. I don't know why they did that. You'll look at teams that are paying in the luxury tax, people that are being handicapped by the second apron from the CBA deal, and they'll say, why would they go that far? Oh my goodness, that's crazy. We have a dude that's making he's got 3 years on his contract. I think he's making 11 million a year. Go crazy and win you game 1 of the conference finals. The first time, and most of these guys have been in the conference finals. And then you come in game 2 and Siakam says, chill. The man that we used to send memes about, we used to do the spinning gorilla meme, the gorilla that was in the zoo just sitting there spinning on water. That was Siakam, because he plays in Draymond Green, to his credit, as much as I don't like the guy sometimes, he said that he has a little bit more of a Boris Diaw to his game, where you can't really get leverage because he'll spin up off you. If you push up on him, he will spin up off you. He will move. He's not going to let you sit there and do what you want with him. You're not going to be able to exert yourself and command what he does. he's going to get freaky his way. That's Siakam. That's always what he's been. And the fact that he's been able to put it together, add a little bit of a stronger jumper to that, and still be that same defensive presence that he's always been, just goes to show these guys are here to stay. And they're still young. These aren't old guys. They're not necessarily kids at this point, but they're young enough. They're young enough where 3, 4, 5 years from now, the knees maybe start aching a little bit, but man, they got time. And I think that based on how they perform this playoffs, and maybe some teams say, you know what, it's great. A different team has won it, the past, like 7 years? So the last 7 years, there's been a different champion. But if the Pacers stay this way, they win 50 plus games next year. They don't have to win the championship, but they go deep. They go conference finals again. There's going to be a conversation had. The league is going to be put on notice. And I just wanted to be one of those guys that, put a pin in it and just let people know something, because I find it interesting. And shout out my boy Heem, because when he really put it into context, I had to appreciate the Pacers more than I really wanted to. And I also, at the end of the day, good ball is good ball. But yeah, if you made it this far, I appreciate you guys. Smash that like button, subscribe, become a member to get the videos faster than anybody else, or to support the content. Caitlin Clark washes Angel Reese, and good morning, good evening, and good night, no matter where you're in the globe watching. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.